Meghan Markle could reduce the horror of the Los Angeles inferno to a cute little celebrity story involving a kid's T-shirt, a washing machine and a pop star, Billie Eilish to be precise. Crass, inappropriate, or an inspirational tale to lift the spirits in a time of hardship? What do you reckon? I know which way I'm leaning. But whatever we think, the caring, sharing and apparently totally tone-deaf Duchess clearly still hasn't got the memo that a great many victims of the LA wildfires were far from impressed by her photo op trip with Harry to traipse through the ashes. Brushing off accusations of grief-grifting, disaster tourism and acting like ghoulish tragedy vultures, Meghan returned the next day to be, as usual, caught on camera. This time, oh so generously carrying bags full of supplies for those made homeless. Isn't she fabulous? Answers on a postcard, please. Now, evidently unaware that she continues to look as if she's exploiting California's catastrophe to court personal publicity, Meghan is making it all about her yet again, with excruciating social media content for her shiny new Instagram account filmed at her Montecito mansion. Beaming Meg gushing about how she met a distraught mother whose principal concern was not so much the loss of her home, but more the destruction of her washing machine in which she was spin-drying her daughter's cherished Billie Eilish T-shirt. Really? Modestly, despite her plethora of incredibly famous pals, Meg conceded that she did not know Ms. Eilish. But phew! She was on the case. And here the Royal Angel of Mercy is 3 weeks later excitedly opening packages of gaudy merchandise sent by the singer herself. Altogether now, amazing! OK, though, a pleasant enough anecdote and nice for the traumatised teen who not only lost her home, but also her T-shirt. But why did Miss Markle have to post filmic proof of her wonderfulness for all to see? Call it theatrical altruism. In Meg's world, good deeds must not only be done, they must be seen to be done. This woman really has swallowed a bucket full of boring pills. The name-dropping T-shirt video lasts just 1 minute and 26 seconds, and yet somehow manages to be epically tedious. Don't know about you, but I was like, for God's sake, get on with it. Anyway, let's hope for her sake that her transparently desperate attempt to shake off the mantle of the toxic bullying allegations in Vanity Fair's shock 8,000 World report do the trick. Because, make no mistake, the Duchess of Sussexes' entire showbiz future now rests on her Netflix cooking show with Love Meghan. At a Tinseltown launch event, the streaming giant's content chief, Bella Bajaria, appeared to stand foursquare behind her company's $100 million deal with their Montecito Majesties. But in the glossy promotional presentation, there was no mention of Meghan. And after the gruesome twosome, stupefyingly dull series Polo sank without trace, they need a hit, and they need one fast. As Vanity Fair reported, disillusioned with Hollywood and bemused by his wife's manic pursuit of fame and fortune, Harry doesn't really care. He just wants to shake hands and kiss babies on pretend royal tours. But the feverishly ambitious Meghan is banking on her 8-part series to finally make the grade. Good luck with that. Postponed from early January until March the 4th, while the selfless Duchess focuses on, and I quote, the needs of those impacted by the wildfires in my home state of California. Her programme is all about baking cakes for mates, freezing edible flowers into ice cubes, and frolicking in the West Coast sun. I simply can wait. The nauseatingly cosy trailer featuring the designer-clad Duchess and her expensively dressed wealthy friends in a $5 million house rented as a film studio was almost as startlingly tone deaf as her woeful washing machine video. When millions of Americans and Brits and people all over the world are struggling in the cost of living crisis, Meghan's telling us how to make ladybird-shaped canapes. Out of touch, doesn't even begin to cover it.
Of course, the Invictus Games and Harry and Meghan. What a picture that was. The Daily Mail have used it this morning. I tweeted it out yesterday. Meghan and Harry both looking up into the sort of the screen above them. She's holding onto his arm for grim life, and he just looks completely and utterly disappointed with his life.
Can I just tell you that my favorite video is the video of Meghan moving a woman, one of the athletes from Team Canada, moving her wheelchair without asking permission. The woman's mid-conversation, and she stops because she's startled that somebody has grabbed her and is relocating her, and it's Meghan just taking it upon herself to adjust this woman for a photo. I have to tell you that so far is my favorite video from Invictus.
It is incredible. She made a little speech, of course, which we're hoping to play later on, in which she said, you know, that Harry was so embedded with this amazing Invictus Games thing that he had invented, that, you know, he loved it more than anything else, and that she said the great thing is that we're all part of one big family. You know, you're my family and you're his family. And all I could think of was, well, she's obviously trying to say that he doesn't have a family because they're all horrible racists. They all live in England.
Or, you know, if I'm your family, then I guess the countdown is on, because you talk to no one from your family. So I better just bask in the glow of your temporary, you know, kindness.
There is that problem. Speaking of tax dollars, let's have a look at what's going on in Vancouver. I know it's a slightly, not the 51st state of America yet, but up in Canada, they've got the pleasure of having Harry and Meghan there for the Invictus Games. We've got a little clip for you. This was them sort of being driven through, I guess, the underground part of the stadium before they got to the top of it, where all the workers are kind of lined up. They're waving to them like they're in some kind of Pope-mobile. You know, I don't know who they think they are, but this is supposed to be about the people taking part in the Invictus Games rather than, you know, the Harry and Meghan show. Isn't that quite an extraordinary thing?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, the Invictus Games are obviously, that's wonderful, and I'm happy that attention is being drawn, you know, to those people and those former wonderful brave soldiers.
I haven't seen them drawing attention to anybody actually in the games. I've only seen them drawing attention to themselves.
You're right, but in theory, you know, the Invictus Games. But I think they're having a very difficult time leaving the spotlight, and considering they asked for privacy, what was that, a few years ago?
Yeah.
They've been the ones courting the media. I know, you know, from people in California, where I'm from, you know, that ship has sailed. I don't think people are interested in them as much anymore. And, you know, Harry probably's made a big mistake by, you know, leaving behind his brother and his father, and let's see what happens.
Well, the good news for us is that Donald Trump says he's not going to deport him, so hopefully he can stay in California for the duration.
Yeah, that was quite funny. I guess spoken, you know, how sometimes people speak about other people's spouses. So again, another sort of realist comment for Donald Trump, even though some might think it's inappropriate.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think he's absolutely spot on, and so do most people, I think, who have seen it.
Donald Trump has ruled out deporting Prince Harry from the US, claiming the Duke of Sussex already has enough problems with his wife. I fell around.
Well, he's probably saying as it is, but actually, I think deep down, what I think he's saying is that Harry's here now, just like trying to put the whole issue to bed. Yes, he's obviously made a dig at Meghan and saying that's his big problem, but actually, probably deep down, he's thinking, and must remember, Donald Trump is quite a royalist. He's got a lot of time for the royal family. He really, as we saw in the presidential election, he was sort of reminiscing about his state visit when he met the Queen, and he definitely has a soft spot for the King and also for Prince William. But I think it's also saying we don't need to give the King any problems. He's trying to recover from cancer. You know, William's obviously got his, you know, with his father and his wife both in recovering from cancer. So I think there's actually a sort of subplot here that actually we've got to just say he's here now, put a line under it, but wish him luck through with his wife Meghan. So quite interesting what he did have to say.
Now, Meghan, we'll talk about her up in Canada at the moment. I'm not sure if she's still there, but she's been up there with Harry, basically kissing him constantly, stop kissing Harry, will you? It's unseemly. But let's talk about her business future first, because I think this is a fascinating story. You and I have spoken so often over the past, well, what is it now? Literally a year since the Duchess of Sussex, the difficult Duchess, launched her lifestyle site, American Riviera Orchard. Still not open for business. Has been mired in a lot of legal difficulties, even over the name. She hasn't sold a damn thing. The site's not active. But Netflix, we hear, have kind of taken over the reins. And they've got these 2 stores, these big shops, in 2 of America's biggest shopping malls. One is the extraordinary, I love the name of this, it's the king-sized The King of Prussia Mall in Philadelphia, and the massive Dallas Galleria. So these are the 2 huge stores, and then Netflix has got shops in there.
Yeah.
Now what Netflix are going to do now, to coincide with the release of Meg's uneagerly awaited lifestyle series with Love Meghan, that comes out on March the 4th, the lucky shoppers at the King of Prussia Mall in Philadelphia and the Dallas Galleria will be able to buy Meg's jam, honey, olive oil, and a couple of other products as well, wallpaper as well, apparently. Now, Netflix apparently believe that this kind of tying up of the 2 sort of initiatives, the TV show and you can buy olive oil at the King of Prussia Mall in Philadelphia. Why is it called the King of Prussia Mall? Did he used to live in Philadelphia or something?
I don't think so.
But I love the name. Now, you know, I know America quite well. You know it better than I do. Now, I just don't think that Philadelphia and Texas are the kind of places where shoppers are going to go, hey, I can buy a $50 jar of jam made by Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. This is desperate stuff, isn't it?
Well, first of all, yeah, I'm from Texas, and I can tell you the South does not like Meghan Markle because they love the royal family, and they feel like Meghan has been so destructive towards the royal family, tearing Prince Harry away from, you know, the Queen and King Charles and his brother. So if there are sales made, I imagine it's people that are astute enough to know that somebody might buy it online, so they pick it up in the mall and throw it online somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think. And also, I'd say to you, when's the last time you were in a mall on purpose? I don't go to malls anymore. Everything's online, or I'll go into a specific shop. But what a bizarre way.
I can answer that question.
Oh.
Just before Christmas, I took my laptop to Apple at the Brent Cross Centre in North London to try and get them to fix it for free, and it didn't work. That's the last time I go to a shopping mall, I'll tell you. They refused.
Well, so this is called like Netflix House, and they're supposed to do multiple experiences. For instance, a Bridgerton tea is something that they might do, but it just gives you the idea of how desperate they are for a return on investment here when it comes to Meghan Markle, that they would try to generate this kind of interest in her and try to have these tangible products. We're not going to race out to get Meghan Markle olive oil or wallpaper. It seems like a very bizarre pursuit.
And this will be, by the way, folks, this will be very expensive jam, very expensive honey, astronomically priced wallpaper. This is brand designer label stuff. So it won't be, a jar of jam. It's Jello, isn't it, in America? Jello?
Oh, we call it jelly. Jelly and jam.
Jelly, not Jello. Jelly. Yeah, okay. Anyway, it won't be, $2.50. It'll probably be $25 or something like that. Now, I don't think that the good people of Texas and Philadelphia are going to shell out that kind of money, do you?
Texas and Philadelphia have experts of their own that they trust.
Yeah.
And Meghan Markle hasn't proven herself in this field. Also, the idea that this, we talked about this briefly, the idea that this is not a cooking show. It's a friendship show. It's a hosting show. Look at how special I treat my friends. Well, how does wallpaper have anything to do with how great you are as a friend? Which, by the way, we have plenty of stories of Meghan burning bridges. But how does there's nothing copacetic about this brand. There's nothing copacetic about these two ever. How does Meghan's lifestyle show have anything to do with her tongue down Prince Harry's throat right now at the Invictus Games? You know, there's
We'll
just
be talking about that in a minute, folks.
but there's just nothing that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
I get this fight because we discussed, was it last week, that Netflix had a launch only recently of a number of programs in Los Angeles, and they didn't actually mention With Love Meghan, which probably is quite worrying for the Duchess. But the head of content there, Bella Bajaria at Netflix, she sort of waxed lyrical and excitedly, oh, I'm really looking forward to this show. And then you get this, that they're going to flog her products at their shops and try and coincide it with the release of With Love Meghan on March the 4th. So what I'm sensing here is this is a massive corporation, the biggest streaming giant in the world. We've done a $100 million contract with the gruesome twosome, Harry and Meghan. And they're desperate to give the image, at least, that it is not what the Puck podcast called it. The Puck podcast, very influential podcast by a couple of people who used to work at the Hollywood Reporter. One of them is the editor, the others like the business editor, very serious people. They called Netflix's deal with the gruesome twosome one of the worst in Hollywood history. So I have a feeling, my sense is that Netflix know this is a lost cause.
They're trying to save face.
But they're desperate to at least make it look as if they're still committed to this arrangement.
Yes, because Harry and Meghan blame everybody but themselves. So if this fails, Netflix doesn't want them to be able to say, like they did with Polo. Remember when Harry and Meghan's friends were saying, well, it was taken away from them, it was out of their hands. That's why Polo was such a colossal failure, is because Harry and Meghan, their vision wasn't met. It was Netflix that took it over. They want to be able to say, we did everything in our power to make this work. And unfortunately, it just, what was it? It didn't connect. Unfortunately, it didn't connect to the audience. And I, think from a industry perspective, do you remember how scathing the articles were about Spotify after the Harry and Meghan deal failed, and how all of these, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, all of those industry publications were saying, here's an example of what not to do. Do you see how much money Spotify wasted? What a bad, what a bad deal. They don't want to have egg on their faces the way Spotify did.
Yeah, but let's cut to the chase. So I suspect a fair few people will watch episode 1 of With Love Meghan.
Yeah, it's like a car crash, okay?
Because it's intriguing, but I suspect they'll get very bored with it very quickly, unless you're the kind of person who just can't wait to find out how to freeze edible flowers into ice cubes. This is important stuff, folks. It's a lifestyle series, no recipes, just sort of rich people in designer clothes frolicking in the Montecito sun. I don't think it'll work. I don't think selling jam in shopping malls is going to work. And at that point, this is make or break for her. This is the day of reckoning. March the 4th is Meghan's day of reckoning. And if it doesn't work, then she really is out in the cold. So we'll leave that hanging there. That's my view, and I know Kinsey agrees. We need... we can get onto this and then we'll go over the break with it. But we need to talk about Meghan and Harry up at the Invictus Games in Whistler in Canada.
Hide your eyes, everybody.
Yeah. And now we, again, for some time now, they've had this strategy, the Sussexes, of don't be seen together because
Professional separation.
Yeah, professional separation. Their image makers said, do you know what, people hate you together, so don't be seen together. So they haven't been now, but that didn't work, so people still hate them. So they've got a new strategy. In fact, it's the new old strategy. They've gone back to basics, and they have now decided, been told actually, to be seen together again. So that's what they're trying up there in Whistler. But Meghan, that phrase, less is more, she's never heard of it, has she?
No.
So not only are they together, as you said earlier, she seems to be spending her entire time with her tongue down her husband's throat.
He's not Santa Claus. Get out of his lap, Meghan.
Yeah, we call them PDAs, public displays of affection. And at one point, just to sort of illustrate how cold and calculated this all is, they're sitting in the crowd, and Harry was heard to mutter, "Give us a kiss then."
Oh.
And she leans in, and does the big kiss. And of course, crash bang, what a picture, lovely photograph, all that. But it is just calculated. It's choreographed. They've gone up there, and she's decided it's going to be good for us if I'm seeing...
It's going to be good for me.
Yeah, it's going to be good for me if I'm seen looking affectionate towards my husband. So she can't take her hands off him. It's getting embarrassing.
It is. But, I think we need to reiterate, it's going to be good for her, because the only one that excelled throughout the professional separation was Prince Harry. Even you and I, who are fairly but heavily critical, would sit back and go, look at Prince Harry shining on the charity circuit without his wife. We really saw a different side of him. It was old Harry that we'd occasionally see jump back on a stage or engaging with children. The only person the professional separation hurt was Meghan Markle. There's multiple things going on here. That scathing Vanity Fair article that accused someone from Meghan's team of shopping a post-Harry divorce book. I think that Meghan and Harry...
I'd read that.
Yeah, I know. I think Harry and Meghan...
At last, the product
finally, the content we've been waiting for.
The public can gather around, yeah.
So that I think that they're trying to discredit that Vanity Fair piece.
Good luck with that.
Yep. Meghan is also trying to promote through wounded veterans and her husband, who's got, the shine on him right now, her With Love Meghan project that's coming out next month. And again, I think a lot of it is just trying to dispel the divorce and separation gossip that had generated prior to the Vanity Fair article. We had been talking about how the last time we saw them together was Tyler Perry's birthday party in August. We didn't see them together for almost 6 months, I think.
Exactly. And she imagines that, locking lips with her husband in Canada, frequently for the cameras, is somehow going to blot out these constant allegations of bullying that, frankly, have ruined her brand. Her brand is tarnished, to say the least. And this is half the problem. This is why I think she's doing this sort of eyelid fluttering kissing antics up in Canada, because she's trying to get good publicity, because everyone in Tinseltown, everyone in the damn world, we read 8,000 words in Vanity Fair saying she was the most god-awful bully to her staff. That followed a report a few months back by the Hollywood Reporter saying, guess what? She was the most god-awful bully to her staff, which followed what happened when she was still here in Britain, working in the palaces, Frontline Royal, when all the staff said she was the most god-awful bully to them. What has emerged, I think, is a picture that now everyone is taking to the bank. This woman is a god-awful bully to her staff, and she thinks kissing Harry for the cameras will somehow blot out the memory of that. It's not going to work, is it?
It's not going to work, but, back to With Love Meghan, people that have seen With Love Meghan say that is basically what this entire series is. She doesn't say anything that could even remotely be considered edgy. It's just hugs and giggles and smiles and frolicking through someone else's garden. This is all a desperate PR spin, because the truth is out. She's not a very easy, person to collaborate with. She's not a very nice person, allegedly, when it comes to being a boss. And I think that this is just all a desperate attempt to change public perception because no one wants to work with her.
Yeah, she stands accused of being, frankly, a calculating, horrible person. That's what people think about her. She's desperately trying to project a different image. And the reason she's doing that now is she's got a TV show coming out, and she's got, a lot of bad publicity to try to blot out between now and March the 4th. And as I say, a few passionate smackers on Harry's lips in Canada, that isn't going to cut it.
Well, the Duke of Sussex has basically criticised the weak moral character in the world in interesting insight, Harry.
Yeah, well, and I wonder who he's trying to have a dig at there. So, yes, and he's at the Invictus Games, which is, really important to him. And it's great to see what Chris Martin was singing at the ceremony. Katy Perry was in town last night for the opening ceremony. And it is something that he's passionate about. But I think he's really, and what we are seeing, though, is Meghan is in town. She's quite obviously why she's wearing a bright white coat so that she can stand out. She does seem to be spending most of the time clinging to her husband at every moment throughout the Invictus Games. So again, you somehow feel that she's trying to make the story about her, yet it should be, and I'm sure Prince Harry would think it's got to be about the competitors and the journey that these competitors have been on. And some of it is horrendous, and the recovery. Yeah. And what's so good about the Invictus Games. As an ex-serviceman, I absolutely applaud what Prince Harry is doing in this, but at the same time, it's got to make sure that it's not the Meghan show. It is absolutely about the competitors, but with every opportunity, she seems to be clinging to him like a limpet mine. So, which I find, that's not really what it's about. It's about the soldiers, not her.
The Daily Beast suggests that Donald Trump is using Meghan, as a way to divert from the fact that he did say that he would not protect Prince Harry if there were issues with his immigration status, if he lied on his papers for entry. I just thought that was Donald Trump being Donald Trump. I didn't feel like there was anything sinister going on, any bigger plot. What do you say about that?
I mean, are you referencing the comment he made over the weekend?
Yeah,
about
she's terrible.
So, this was amazing. And again, if you think Donald Trump cannot cross the aisle, this comment alone is proof that he can. When he was asked whether he would open Harry's visa file and look into deporting him if he lied on his application about a little drug dabbling, what have you, he said, "I'm not going to do that. Harry's got enough problems. His wife is terrible." I mean, a beautiful encapsulation of the problem. Why add to this guy's miseries?
Yeah, exactly. We also heard Eric Trump say right before the election that he didn't think that his dad would deport Harry because he said nobody cares about Harry. And I thought, I keep stressing that when people ask me, "Oh, do you think he's going to get deported?" I'm like, Eric Trump told us no one cares. I think that was code for we don't care. I mean, I think nobody cares, but I also felt like that was code for the Trumps don't care. Really quickly, how many different versions of the word Ghislaine is out there? Because I don't know which version to say. It's very confusing.
That's a great question. I've done countless interviews since my book came out. And I'll tell you, almost every interviewer pronounces her name a little differently. So
yeah, okay. Well, at least I'm in good company.
Yes.
Now, of course, I thought of you in case the audience isn't aware. Back in the old BBC days, we were given kind of a timeline when Prince Andrew sat down with the BBC, and he was trying to, say, like, no, look, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
What we found out is Prince Andrew told Jeffrey Epstein that they would play in an email sent 2 months after he claimed their friendship had ended. He said that he'd cut ties with Epstein in December 2010, shortly after the pair were pictured in Central Park, which, I can't imagine. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when the palace saw those photos of them just walking around Central Park. However, it was in late February of 2011 that Andrew wrote to Epstein, quote, "Keep in close touch and we'll play some more soon." The emails seen by Bloomberg were read aloud in a London courtroom as part of a filing by the Financial Conduct Authority. This is another lawsuit that's going on. First of all, did you know that they were still communicating? Because you have spent such a significant amount of time studying that relationship.
Well, I mean, certainly at the time, there was indication that Prince Andrew, of course, thought all this would blow over. He thought when he gave that that now infamous interview in which he was sweating, even though he said he didn't sweat, when he was seen with Virginia Roberts Giuffre. And the basis of the scandal that erupted, he never really took it seriously. He thought it would all go away into the past and that he would be able to continue on, not only in his royal duties, but also in this relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, because he enjoyed coming here to New York to hang out with Jeffrey at his townhouse. He enjoyed going down to Florida to hang out with Jeffrey at the Palm Beach mansion. And certainly play around and carouse and get himself into a lot of trouble. It was only after that interview that, of course, the royals were so embarrassed by what happened that they, and certainly the Queen was mortified, his mother, that they sat him down and said, "You have to end all this. You're a disgrace and you're an embarrassment." But, either Prince Andrew has a very thick head or it just never really got to him because he thought he could continue on. And now we have some actual emails that confirm that. There's no indication, as far as we know, that after the two of them were spotted and photographed walking in Central Park, that they were ever together again. There's no indication that Andrew ever came here. But it's certainly interesting. It just shows, what his mindset was, his belief that he never did anything wrong, that he could get away for it. And where it stands now, years later, it's just yet another embarrassment now, not to the Queen, but of course, to King Charles. Because this is a scandal that refuses to die, it refuses to go away, and it's just heaps of more embarrassment for the royal family.
We're guesstimating here, but I think that one of the reasons why this is so cringe, I guess is the only way to describe it, is the idea of this grown man typing to another grown man, "Play soon." If you were to guesstimate, what are the activities that Prince Andrew is looking forward to doing with Jeffrey Epstein soon?
Well, I mean, we certainly know through court filings and interviews with some of Epstein's victims that Prince Andrew enjoyed being surrounded by these young girls. He enjoyed having some of them sit on his lap. At one point, they played with puppets at Jeffrey Epstein's house. And of course, then it gets darker when you get into the fact that Prince Andrew was the recipient of massages that took place both in Florida and here in New York at Jeffrey Epstein's townhouse. Not to mention, of course, the three, I would say, verified incidents of actual sexual abuse involving Virginia Roberts Giuffre that took place on the island, Jeffrey Epstein's island, also in London at Ghislaine Maxwell's townhouse, of course, and then the other incident that happened in the United States. So,
I better say that Prince Andrew says he didn't do that. Just to be
yes, of
clear.
course,
I'll say he said he didn't do anything. But when you were talking about the puppets, it occurred to me. I remember reading in your book about them, the magician. I mean, it is very immature. It is. I mean, it's all about play. It truly is. It's about just a bunch of grown men that with their Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that Elaine knew Prince Andrew, of course, and brought him into Jeffrey Epstein's circle because they viewed him to some degree almost as a puppet, that they could take advantage of him because he enjoyed going to discos, he enjoyed partying. And this was an opportunity where Maxwell basically set him up to Jeffrey Epstein and said, listen, we can bring Prince Andrew into this. Not only is it going to make for some amazing connections for you for networking and giving your wealthy buddies access to the Queen's son, but at the same time, this is all blackmail material. I mean, they took advantage of Prince Andrew for years, and he was gullible enough to go along with all of it.
So interesting. So I guess you're saying there's no proof that they saw each other after the meeting in Central Park.
Yes,
but were we surprised by these email exchanges? And the reason I ask that is because I'm wondering if there could be more that we're surprised by. Could more evidence come up that alludes to anything else?
Well, I mean, I think certainly what's interesting now is that this has caused yet another ripple in the exposure of everything related to Jeffrey Epstein, because you also have the emergence now of Peter Mandelson, who is the newly appointed British ambassador to the United States. And of course, he was a friend of Prince Andrew's. He was also a friend of Jess Staley. Jess Staley was the big banker that greenlighted a lot of funds for Jeffrey Epstein. And it was Staley's, one of the legal actions involving Stanley actually was where these papers emerged, where these emails emerged in a London court in an ongoing court action. So, who knows what else may come out in terms of additional discovery? Will there be more embarrassing emails, and what else may it lead to? And I think now that you have two factors going on right now. One is, of course, the emergence on more of a world stage of Mr. Mandelson, who is going to be representing the UK in the United States. It makes him a much more visible player. And of course, people will begin looking into his relationship with some of these individuals. And then, of course, you have here in the United States, you have Pam Bondi, who is now the new Attorney General for Donald Trump's White House. And she has said in past interviews that more of the Epstein files should be released publicly, with some of the names not being redacted. So we have a lot of new activity, a lot of new news that's bubbling up here involving possible release of some new documents related to Epstein, and of course, more about this gentleman in the UK in terms of his relationship with all of these individuals. So I think we're moving into much more, or basically new interest in the whole Epstein scandal. Just in fact, on Twitter X yesterday or the day before, one of the trending topics was Jeffrey Epstein. Hundreds of thousands of tweets, and it really wasn't based on any one story. It was all of these things kind of coming together. So the interest here in the U.S., of course, is still mind-blowing in terms of interest about Jeffrey Epstein and of course, at the root of all this is the public's belief that there's this secret list that the government has of all of the men that Jeffrey Epstein allowed to have sexual relations and sexual abuse with his young women. And of course, I don't necessarily believe that there's an actual list that spells out all of these names, but there's still other documentation that we haven't received, such as some of the additional flight logs involving some of the other pilots in the Maxwell trial here in New York, in which she was convicted of sex trafficking. A lot of documents were put on the were put into the public record, but there's still others that we yet have not seen, and it may involve other wealthy and powerful individuals that we may not know traveled with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, of course, just going on Jeffrey Epstein's plane does not necessarily mean that they took part in any of this. There's many, many individuals, famous people in all aspects of life, who he gave rides to on his plane, basically to possibly.
It was kind of like a manipulation tactic.
Well,
like you've got
favors and other things. And I think that, of course, Epstein was always looking at individuals to blackmail. Certainly Bill Gates came out recently here, one of the richest men in the world, and said that, that Epstein tried to blackmail him, although he denies that he took part in any activity that was untoward. However, you also had individuals like Prince Andrew who completely rolled over and were opened up to all kinds of blackmail. And I do believe that there's probably still photos or videotapes showing Prince Andrew doing very, very crazy things that, that whether we'll see them, whether they'll ever reach the public light, possibly, but maybe not. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like Jeffrey Epstein really went, well, if you look at his background and his education and how he rose to where he was, he really did live by the you are who you associate with. So you might not be doing anything inappropriate on his jet, but then he gets to go whisper in Bill Gates' ear that he just had Bill Clinton on his jet. So you want to be on his jet because this is a group of cool, successful people. Yeah, but they found those vulnerabilities in people like Prince Andrew. So I guess when you talk about Pam Bondi, is that similar to what Kash Patel is threatening? That I think Kash Patel was really saying that he wanted to release the flight logs. Do you think that those are similar documents, or could there be or could those be two different campaigns within this new administration to release different pieces of evidence?
Well, I think that the government has a great deal of paperwork on Jeffrey Epstein, and not all of it has been released. Again, you have to understand that they built their case, and of course, they had arrested Jeffrey Epstein and were planning on bringing him to trial for sex trafficking. And of course, as we know, he took his life behind bars. That's something that I do believe, despite all of the various conspiracy theories. And there's all that material that the Southern District of New York, that the federal government was preparing to bring to trial. Some of that material was used to prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell, but there's other material that's still in the government files that has not been released. Now, the question, of course, comes down to, are there other individuals that the government may have considered prosecuting in addition to Ghislaine Maxwell? We don't know what they have. We don't know what evidence they possibly have. And for them to now automatically release the files, that would that could negate any efforts by the Justice Department or authorities to prosecute others. So I don't necessarily know if we'll see material. I think it's a big question. Of course, Donald Trump has said he's going to release the remaining papers on JFK. He's going to release the papers on Robert Kennedy's assassination. He's going to release the papers on Martin Luther King's assassination. But those cases, of course,
those cases don't involve him.
well, they're decades old, and there'll never be additional prosecution involving individuals from those cases. However, the Jeffrey Epstein case, for the most part, is still a fresh case, even though it's been a few years since Jeffrey Epstein died behind bars. So whether those documents could be released, it remains a question, because if there's any plans for any type of additional prosecution, it would hurt that prosecution if those papers were released. And of course, the X factor in all this is the fact that Maxwell still remains behind bars down in Florida, and she has thus far been reluctant to give up any additional individuals to the feds. She maintains her innocence. She says, her lawyers say that she was made a scapegoat for Jeffrey Epstein after his death, that they needed to hang someone and that they chose her, that she was the low-hanging fruit in this. But, you know, as time goes on, who knows? She may talk to her lawyers and be willing to give up some information. So that the release of new documents could hurt any possible prosecution. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Very good point. I want to ask you from a public perception perspective, if Prince Andrew is willing to lie about the last time he communicated with Jeffrey Epstein, might he be capable of lying about other more important things? I mean, do you think that should be a concern to whoever's handling Prince Andrew's image today, that if he's capable of lying about when the last time he talked to him was, what else is he capable of lying about?
Well, I don't think he has an image that's left. I mean, you know, he is viewed as a disgrace and an absolute embarrassment to the royal family, and I think to obviously the citizens in England. He's certainly someone who they look down on. I do know one thing, and that is Prince Andrew will never attempt to step foot in the United States, because I feel that if anything, he's more fearful now of facing any type of prosecution here. You have to remember that U.S. authorities really wanted to interview Prince Andrew, and his lawyers went through a whole round of discussions with authorities here on a possible interview with him. Of course, at the same time, they had no intention of allowing him to come to the United States for an interview, but they were certainly trying to make the thing go away. I do think that Prince Andrew is absolutely fearful that if he were to step foot on U.S. soil, that whether or not he could be apprehended, but certainly he could certainly be questioned. And, you know, once you're in that situation, it could open the floodgates.
The wonderful word of Donald Trump. Well, he's let Prince Harry off the hook. He says he won't deport him, even though it looks like he lied, or he may have lied on his visa application. In the end, some old ginger prince, doesn't really matter if he lives there or not, does he? So Donald said, well, I'm going to let him off. He's got enough problems as it is with that wife of his, talking about Meghan, and says she's terrible.
I think he's having too much fun with Prince Harry to let him go. He's a real asset to him. Probably every time Meghan or Harry opens their gob, it's worth another 100,000 votes to Donald Trump. So he's not going to get rid of one of his best assets.
No, exactly. And I always knew he wouldn't kick him out. I mean, you know, it would create an unnecessary diplomatic tension. It's not worth it. You know, it doesn't really matter that much. But of course, Harry couldn't quite let that one lie, and made his speech at the Invictus Games going on about the weak moral character, implicitly attacking people like Trump for not leading the world properly. Who the hell does Prince Harry think he is, going on about weak moral characters and their leadership qualities? What does he know about it? Does he think he's Jesus Christ or something? I mean, you know, this is a guy who's written more books than he's read, and he hasn't even read a single book yet because his book was written for him by a ghostwriter. So who the hell does he think he is?
He's probably someone that rails against privilege, and they're always the most privileged people you can possibly hope to not to stumble across. He's incredibly thin-skinned as well, and insecure, clearly. He recognises his faults, and it doesn't take too much to press his buttons, which is what Donald Trump's discovered, and he's just going to do it endlessly now.
Yeah. So he praised opening the Invictus Games. He praised the veterans' courage, values and humanity. Well, obviously we'll go with that, whilst noting there was, and I quote, no shortage of crises, no absence of uncertainty, no lack of weak moral character in the world. What a pompous twat.
And he gave a little look after he'd said it. Oh, I nailed it there.
Yeah.
oh, H-bomb, drop the mic. Yeah.
Get out of that, Trump. Oh, God.
I think you'll find.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Harry, you're the crap under Donald Trump's shoes. You really are.